Self-amputation. That sounds, it doesn't sound like anything I want to do. I want to talk to y'all about something that I've noticed. I've seen the phenomenon. I mean, I know it's going on, but I did not know what was happening or why it was happening. And that is called, especially in the summertime, sudden limb drop. Now, sometimes limbs are going to fall out when it's real windy and it just your trees have issues and the limbs aren't healthy, they're dead. I mean, that happens a lot. I've got just 100 trees on my place, big trees, probably thereabouts anyway. And this is just one example. We'll look at several examples, but this is just one example where basically the top of this tree just came out, fell out, and just wedged itself in between. That's 2 trees right there, just wedged itself in between those. But sudden limb drop, and it happens, it says that the trees are performing self-amputation. It's got to do with the tree shedding moisture. They suck up moisture from the ground, and maybe they have to try a little harder during drought situations, which we are in terribly right now. And the tree transpires that water through the leaves. And if the tree for some reason can't do that, it's 103 right now and supposed to be 105 or 6 before the day's over. And you would think the tree would not have a problem shedding the water in it. But apparently it does, and because I have got a bunch of limbs down. Let's go look at a few more. We'll talk a little bit more about this. Now, what I'm mainly familiar with is trees like that. That's a huge dead oak tree, probably 30 inches in diameter, thereabouts. Well, I don't want to get too close to it because it's dropping limbs like crazy. But that's what I'm used to, is dead trees dropping limbs, and it's due to a disease called hypoxylon canker. It's almost like a cancer in oak trees. I think maybe even other trees, but for sure oak trees. And it's in the South. It's in Texas. I guess it's everywhere. So I expect limbs to fall from that tree. It's just they should, because the limbs are dying. The tree's dead, and as the limbs get rotten and brittle, then they will fall off. But here's an example of a tree that it was a completely calm day, as I remember it. And this huge limb, and that's about 3 limbs probably, I think one fell and took several with it, came off that place right there, and that's about 16 inches in diameter. It's big, a big oak tree, and just basically took the top out of the tree. Tree's kind of leaning, obviously, but just took the top out of that tree, and it's next to the dead tree there. But just a huge example of, I guess, what's going to be called self-amputation. And I got to come clean that up, but I'm not going to clean it up while it's 104 degrees. Now, that's a totally different subject there. That tree did blow down in a windstorm. It's just now beginning to lay on my fence. I've showed it to you before. I just haven't found anybody with a strong enough machine to come over and help me, or to pull it, or to help me pull it. So I've decided, I think I'm gonna call the guy that did my pond. They've got some big track hose, and just get him to come and just pick it up and lift it up off the fence and bring it this way, and then I'll cut it up later. But I really need it off that fence. If it was out in the pasture, I'd have already cut it down, cut it up, whatever. So I've just been waiting and expecting it one of these days to just take the fence out. But hopefully I can get somebody out here soon enough to fix that. But that's not what I'm talking about as far as limb drop or amputation. Let me show you another example. Now, here's a perfect example of it. Completely calm day as I remember it, and this big limb fell. Now, that is on the road there. I mean, the limb is not, but it's in the culvert. I haven't, any other time I would come pick it up, but the culvert is so steep, I'd have to back down in here from the road, back down in there. It would expose me on the road for quite a while, and I'm afraid I'd get hit. There's a curve this way, not too far, that people come around way too fast, and it's just not a good place for me to do it. So I'm kind of hoping the state will come do it. It's on their, or the county, it's on their property anyway. But it broke off from right up there. I don't know whether you can see that light place up there. just a huge place where that limb, and look at the tree. The tree is just as healthy as it can be, just as green and healthy as it can be. And yet that huge limb that stretches out way over there, and then up on the road, that's the end of it right there. Just a huge, huge limb. And I know the state thinks I should probably go get it and pick it up. And I'm sure my neighbors think I should clean it up. And I will, maybe when it gets a little cooler, I'll come over on this side and try to pick it up best I can over the fence. But one other place, let me show you what's going on with a limb drop self-amputation. And this is the one that surprised me the most. Now we're in the front yard now, and there's the tree from a different direction laying there on the fence that we just looked at. But this is the front yard, and that tree right there, right up in there, had a limb fall down just right across here. And it was 14 to 16 inches in diameter. But what was strange, I was in my office, my studio, and I was working there for an hour or two and came out and looked out the front window, and then the front yard was full of green limbs. And this whole thing had come down. And the reason I pulled it down, because I like to have access to my front yard. And also I like to be able to look out the front window when I'm watching TV or something, and that limb prevented me from doing that. So even though it was 102, I got out here and pulled that one out. It just fell down, and the butt of it, the big butt of it, was hanging, sitting on top of the fence. Kind of took out the fence a little bit, bent the fence up a little bit. But so many limbs have fallen out of this tree lately. I'm just not that interested in fixing this fence yet, because it's just going to have to be redone. And I hate to come in here and redo it and then something else falls out or the tree falls down altogether. But anyway, just a huge limb, completely leaved out, completely green and beautiful and full of water, you would think. And that may be what it is. It can't transpire the water. So the limb itself gets filled with water, and if for some reason it can't get rid of it, and I don't understand why in a drought, but can't get rid of the water, and it just breaks off. It's full of water. They say it typically doesn't happen in an upward growing limb, which that one is. That limb's growing upward. It's usually on a horizontal-ish type limb. But so that one is kind of not the norm, but it broke off one day, and there wasn't a wind anywhere. It was just as calm as it could be. The limb was perfectly viable, but it fell anyway. So again, as you drive around in maybe every area, the article I read was from Portland. So if they're having trouble in Portland with what they call a drought, compared to Texas, I don't think Portland even knows what a drought is. But if they're having trouble in Portland with it on the west coast, northwest coast, then it could be anywhere. So you definitely may have been seeing this in your area, is what I'm getting at. Limb drop, self-amputation of trees to try to stay alive. It's a survival instinct of the tree to self-amputate. And it said the limb is typically preceded by a loud cracking and popping. And of course, that's the tissue of the limb giving way. So anyway, if you're seeing it, that's what it is. Limb drop, self-amputation, a tree just trying to keep itself alive. And I would have never thought about that in a million years, but that's what it is. Hope it hadn't been too windy for you to hear me, and we'll come back to you later. And one of these days we'll be picking up all these limbs, I hope, if it ever cools off. All right, I think that's it. We're gone.